Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. The last 2 weeks have been really rough, and honestly, I've been doing a little bit more reading than usual, just trying to get my mind off of everything that has been going on. So I just want to share with you some of the things I've been reading. Haven't really done a roundup in quite some time. So some of this might be familiar with some of the reviews I put out, but the first book that I have read in the last couple of weeks is Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula. I did a review on this. This reads definitely more like a Sherlock Holmes book than a Dracula book. The only major difference being that you kind of know what the mystery is before Sherlock Holmes does, but it's still really fun. Highly recommend checking it out. But this was good. This was my first book I read for Occult Detective October. The next book I read is Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Again, this was my first foray into reading Wyndham, and now some channels are doing like Wyndham Winter, where you're reading a John Wyndham book. I feel ahead of the curve, but honestly, it was just happenstance that it worked out that way. This was a really good book. It was the predecessor to a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction that I enjoy now that you often see with like zombies. So check it out. Instead of zombies, you have walking plants with poisonous barbs, and nearly the entire population of the world is struck blind. So it's really good. I just wish that there was more of it. And while there are unofficial sequels, this is all we got from John Wyndham. So it's a really good book, though. Really nice to get lost in. Check it out. The next book I read is, well, I listened to this on audiobook. It is Old Gods Waken by Manly Wade Wellman. This is the first of the novels of the character of Silver John. Silver John being also known as John the Balladeer. This is like the complete works of his short stories, but he also had a line of novels. Silver John is just a wandering minstrel in the Appalachian Mountains. This is what I would consider, if I were to classify it as cozy horror. I know he gets lumped in a lot with the pulps because he was written for magazines mostly, um, but he's not like a Conan or uh, um, a Solomon Kane character. He is definitely what makes this cozy. I would say is that he is not doing anything necessarily from his own skill to combat evil. He combats evil just by his inherent goodness, if that makes sense. You know, at the end of a Silver John story that good is going to triumph over evil, and it's just fun to see it unfold. He does have a few tricks in a lot of his stories. Not so much in this book. In this book, he's just doing it through pure brute force. The story is about two druids who move to this new land in the United States in the Appalachian Mountain area, and they're having a land dispute with a farmer, and they decide to start using their druidic magic to sort of take over that farmer's land. The farmer happens to know Silver John, who was just passing by and enjoying his company, and he thought he would help out. The druids are trying to combine their druidic magic with the Native American magic of the Appalachian area, and so they're creating like this new unholy union. And so Silver John teams up with a medicine man who is fortunately not depicted in a stereotypical way. So it was really nice to see that. But between him and his friend, they go through a gauntlet of different challenges, trying to save the day and save this farmer and his family. It was really fun. Again, I don't know if these are written for everyone. If you pick these up thinking that it's just going to be like a paperback from hell, you might be a little bit disappointed. But I love it, and if you're into something a little more cozy like that, where there's a clear demarcation between good and evil, this is worth checking out. The next book I read was also for Occult Detective October, and it was disappointing. That is The Adept by Catherine Kurtz and Deborah Turner Harris. I did not get along with this book at all. It is a story about the main character who's an adept, which is a reincarnation of the Knights Templar. This takes place in Scotland, and so there is the main character is also like a Scottish nobleman who is a psychiatrist as well, and a wizard on top of that. And he does unofficial work for their police department when things get weird, and artifacts are being stolen in this book. But like, one of the big downsides to this book is like the mystery you don't get until like this part of the book, like right here. So this part is mostly boring. He does get a new protege who he is trying to train in the magical arts, but like, I feel like a good editor could have saved this. That much of the book probably could have been cut. It would have been much stronger. There's a lot of just over-explaining things that are not interesting. Like if it was more, magic and things along that line, or even just investigative work, this could have worked. But man, there's a lot of description of just how cool the main character is, and like his cool things that he owns because he's rich, and we still don't really get a sense of him as a person. And if you're gonna just include like all of his cars that he's driving around, like you're gonna just live vicariously through him, at least let us get to see the world through his eyes a little bit more. He's just a blank slate. He is dull. His the guy, his protege, an artist who he's trying to also recruit into this like order of Templars, is a little bit more interesting, but at the end of the day, like they just over describe all the wrong things in this book. Like, I am going to go down the street. I'm going to lay out the plan for going down the street, and then you get a page of him going down the street where nothing varies from the plan. Like, you didn't need to include that. Like, you could just edit that out. And the only mystery we get right off the bat in this book is that a magical artifact is stolen, and then we get like a cut scene of the bad guys just receiving the artifact and then killing the thief. Not much of a spoiler as this happens like right away, but then not much happens for a while, and then we get another instance of a burglar coming in and stealing an artifact and then going to his bosses, and the bosses just going, bam, you're dead. And it's like, it was predictable and a little bit boring. There was like a grave robbery that could have been interesting, but like they just draw it out so much where it's just, I don't care. So unfortunately, I had already picked up the sequel to this, and I am just I'm not diving into this right away. So be warned, it could have been worse, but like I gave it like a 2-star review. It's really not worth the time. A book that was worth the time, though, was another audiobook I listened to, and that is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I don't really want to over-explain this because it's more fun to watch it, like, figuring out what happens as the story evolves. I mean, you do get, like, the basic lowdown within the first few chapters, but this is definitely more of a throwback to classic horror that I used to read as a kid. A lot of, like, early Stephen King type of horror. Not so much horror as as much as you're getting a gross out, if that makes sense. But there's still an element of like post-pandemic, like, get that away from me, stay away from me, you might be sick with something. And this was written way before the pandemic, but I think it really works now as a book. So I highly recommend that. The downside to this book is like the characters are a little bit cookie cutter and stereotypes, but for a horror story, you often get that anyway. This didn't feel out of place. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I'm going to check out more of his work. The next book I read, I wasn't planning on it, but it arrived in the mail, and I had to just I had to read it because of Sumerian September. We had gone through, and I had not finished reading all of the Conan stories this year. So this is the third volume of the complete works of Conan by Robert E. Howard. This is The Conquering Sword of Conan. And this has one of my favorite short stories in it. That is Red Nails, where Conan finally fights a dragon, which is what we all want. But he also like goes into this seemingly abandoned city, which turns out to be one large complex with like warring factions inside. My only critique is I wish it were extended into a full novel-length story, because I really like the premise of it. But again, this is like 5-star read. Like, this is some good stuff if you're into pulp. And that is everything I read other than like comics. I read for Halloween. I decided to read Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which is a spin-off of the movie Freddy versus Jason, only they add elements of the Evil Dead to it, which is really fun. I enjoyed that quite a bit, but I also realized it's really stupid, and I'm okay with that. Ash Williams is he's kind of a dick, and without Bruce Campbell's charm playing the role, he's really unlikable in the comic. But it was still a fine comic for what it was. So it's like a 6-issue miniseries, and there is a spin-off which I'm going to get to probably in the near future just to see what happens. But basically, Freddy becomes like a Deadite. He gets the Book of the Dead. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but he gets the book from Evil Dead, and he just becomes like this super Deadite who can now manifest in the real world. It's fine. It's good. Check it out. 2 things I am currently reading is this was supposed to be for Occult Detective October. I didn't finish it in time because Conan unfortunately shoved this little sorceress away, but this is Deadline by Jennifer Blackstream. This is one of like 15 books now of Occult Detective, kind of reminiscent of the Dresden Files, if at least as far as what I'm getting right now. It could deviate far from it, but I'm only just like a little bit in, like a couple chapters in, so I can't really say anything intelligent about it right now. I'm also reading, oops, I put my life source on it. Let's see if that stays up. I'm also I'm also reading Archie, A Celebration of America's Favorite Teenagers. This is just a coffee table book that celebrates like the history of Archie and Archie comics, and then has a few comics thrown in there as well. I really liked reading these as a kid. I'm not ashamed of it. I read a lot of these because they were really cheap in the grocery store when you get these little digest-sized books of Archie comics and the double digests and stuff. So I had just a box full of these, and I still like reading them. I would say it's a guilty pleasure, but I don't really feel any guilt about it. So that's about it. I am knocking things over again. I am not really planning on doing any official reading events in November, so I don't know if I'm going to do an official TBR going forward. I mainly just want to use the month of November to clean up some of the books I had already shown you and haven't gotten to because of just time constraints. That's about it. I might be persuaded to do the Read What You Own challenge. I still haven't decided. Will he, won't he, doesn't matter. Probably not. But I do have a lot of books I do need to get read. So maybe. We'll see. I'm just flirting with the idea at the moment. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing excellent. I will talk to you later. Bye.